Hello and welcome to Transporter Room 3. I am Natalie, your I don't call myself a host. What do I facilitator works? I don't think that's the one I usually wear. But anyway, for this lovely
Bring it back
show,
to the 90s.
bringing it back to the 90s, where we talk about Star Trek. Currently, it's only been the Next Generation, but we only have 3.5 more seasons. Yeah, I think I mapped that right. Don't worry, I'm
Four and
I'm
a
not
half.
in engineering yet. I just realized I
Four and a
say that
half.
4.5. Oh yeah, I suppose the seventh season also has episodes
Yeah,
to watch.
it
touche,
does.
touche, Robin. Uh, we are.
Oh, welcome.
Yes. We are. Well, hello, Milady Saito, in the chat there. I forgot where I left it, where I bumbled through. So I will just say we are discussing Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 3, Episodes 13, Deja Q, and 14, A Matter of Perspective, which is the correct episode for that, the correct title for that episode, but it's poorly named. But I'm sure we'll get into that in probably about 30 ish minutes. Um, but for right now, I am your facilitator, Natalie, also known as Dark Aardvark. You can find me on Twitter at dark_aardvark. It is the best place to keep up with me, and I just realized I really need to update how the bot puts my information in there because Starry Seas isn't a thing anymore. And anyway, I can't believe I can believe I am bumbling the intro to the show because that is my custom. Um, but I am joined, as ever, on this show by Robin. A little bit about yourself and where we can find you if you would like to do that.
Uh, my name is, as mentioned, Robin. You can find me on Twitter at KaikaC. You can find me tomorrow night for the beginning of season 7, I believe, right? Once Upon a Leap.
I think so.
Some people moving around, causing trouble. And you can that's on Milady Saito's channel. And on Thursday night, you can find me on Milady Saito's channel in Azure Kingdom, a game run by Anna Tony, which has been fun. And yeah, that's mostly where you can find me for the moment. Although in the future there will be Sunday nights.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my kind of experience with Star Trek is I watched some of it when I was like in high school, junior high and high school with my parents, off and on, and did a complete rewatch of TNG with my roommate about a year and a half ago. And then I was very entertained when Natalie started watching it for the first time. And she invited me to talk about it with her. And usually we have a third person, Hope. You can find let's see, at Hope Tracy 71, I believe,
You
right?
got it. I mean, assuming I'm
Uh,
also remembering correctly, I guess.
but he is having some car problems, I guess would be fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not joining us,
Yes, the
or
not back from his away mission
not back from his away mission.
quite
Transporter
yet.
room problems.
Yes. Um,
Brian has
oh,
fallen
bro.
asleep at the controls.
Yes, he was doing whatever he is doing off screen when he walks in jauntily to to the the room. Um, I do want to say I just saw before we went live with the show that the show that started this show when I watched it, the Lower Decks, has been season 3. I think is going to start hitting the streaming services in summer, and they are also been renewed for season 4. So
Oh, well, that's good to know.
yeah, that is good times. And of course, if it wasn't for me and this show, that wouldn't have happened. So you're welcome,
It's
Star
true,
Trek fandom. Yeah,
which is
I'm,
it's good. Season 2 left off on quite a cliffhanger.
I'm not there yet.
I
I'm
know.
not there. Yeah. But without further ado, let's get on to Deja Q. And I realized halfway through that was going to rhyme and emphasized it because why not? Um, I love the return of Q, and I love that he appears nude and very saucy at the start of this episode.
Red alert.
Yeah, wow. Um, Yeah.
There's something about this opening before we get to Q that feels very much like it could have been in a Riff Tracks
Oh,
movie.
really?
To
Okay.
me, I don't know. There's just something about the way that's like the moon is collapsing into the planet.
Yeah.
We've got to stop it. I don't
The,
know. There was
there
something about
is
it.
there is something like it's mm, it's very it's awkwardly hard science for Star Trek. I think like what they're trying to get across, and that's why it kind of sounds like you know
Yeah, no,
like
I
that.
should say I love it because I also feel like it is kind of a perfect backdrop for a Q heavy episode in some ways. Like it feels very appropriate. Um, just because John Delancey
Hmm.
is so hammy so much of the time
He is.
that there should be kind of a hammy B plot going
Mhm.
on in the background seems very appropriate somehow.
And you're using the word hammy, and I think I said in the tweet thread that he was chewing the scenery, and I think we both mean these in the best possible way.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, it's Star Trek. It's supposed to be a little camp, a little fun, and I mean this episode delivers on that for sure. Um, I do have the delightful joke that I'm very proud of, where I say it's tasteful cutity for him being nude. I also like that he's just aghast at having to wear clothes when we've seen him wear clothes all the time, but I
we've seen him
suppose that
more
was
close.
because he wanted to, and it was
Yeah,
like
I
part
think
of his
that's
bit or his shtick, I guess.
it seems like it, and he's.
Yeah.
I think it's also the feeling sometimes. I think all of us uh, cosplayers maybe have people who are more cosplay than I am
True.
of there's a difference between wearing the kind of drab clothes that he's forced to wear just as a normal human and his kind of
That's
much
true.
more like over the top like
Ostentatious,
Napoleonic
yeah, gear and stuff.
costumes that he wears otherwise.
That's a good. That's a good point. I
So
get. Yeah, he is a kind of like a. I don't know if fashionista. I'm sure there's probably like a masculine version of that, but who cares? Everybody can be a fashionista if they want to, and he very much is because he dresses all the time for making a point or expressing himself and his thoughts. So I
do you
think
ever think
I think
Patrick
you're
Stewart is
correct.
sometimes like, I want to wear that
Probably he's probably like behind the scenes like after this episode is done, put that in my
outfit?
it's probably just like a trunk full of Polaroids somewhere in his house of him wearing all the fantastical Q and other things that he couldn't wear on the show. um I feel like there's the section in here when Picard's realizing he has to deal with Q again, where he has his head in his hand, and I think often, if not always, the meme is from this episode and him
Is
doing
it
it
from this one?
because
Yeah, my roommate definitely pointed because we were
yeah,
watching the first half of
because
it. My roommate definitely pointed it out. Yeah,
yeah,
that
it
he does the classic Picard
looks yeah,
hand face in his hand.
and it looks super familiar, but it might just be that it's a gesture that
I think it comes back that he
yeah,
does it, but I think this might be the first
yeah.
time that it happens that we see it. Of oh, why?
I love I mean I really enjoy this episode. Um just some great interactions uh with Q, starting right off with when Troy is able to read his feelings and saying he's
I would
terrified,
say
and
he's terrified.
Q's reaction is how rude. It's just like it was,
I
in an almost like Michelle Tannery sort of way, which works out because these would have been happening, or not. No,
yeah.
it's the middle daughter that says the how rude line. Um,
Is it? Oh, is it? Oh,
it's
I
Stephanie.
can't
Yeah,
remember. Is it Stephanie?
I
Okay.
think so.
Yeah, one thing I like about that is fun about this episode, and I think kind of fun about Q episodes in general, which it plays right into kind of my wheelhouse, is that um, you get to see the Star Trek crew be um, good but very
Hmm.
snarky,
Yeah.
which is kind of a fun side of them to see. And I feel like with Troy right here, where it's like, she gets to,
I think Troy gets to throw some shade every once in a while. The one I really love seeing it with is Dr. Crusher. Like,
yeah, Dr. Crusher later
seeing
on.
Dr. Crusher bring some snark to her bedside manner is a lot of fun. And I don't think we ever really get to see that.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I was thinking that as I was watching, as
yeah.
I wish we got to see that Crusher a little bit
Yeah.
more. But then I love Worf's, of course, very logical.
Yes. What can I do to convince you?
That I'm mortal is die. Of
Yeah.
course, is the logical answer to.
Yes.
uh,
And I do want, this is springing off of that, I do want to see an odd couple type show with Worf and Q. Like, forced to be roommates. And the Data can be the neighbor who kind of keeps the peace between the two of them a little bit, I guess.
oh yeah, we get that heartbreaking moment with Data, and he's like, "Oh, the thing that
Yes.
I
Oh,
most aspire to is
God. You achieved in disgrace. Oh,
grace."
my God. Oh, my heart for my poor little android boy. It just broke when he delivered that line. I was like, oh.
I also do like going back to Worf as they're going down. Like you, I don't know. Like I don't want to make too much of it, but like I do. You do see sort of like how for Q as this sort of immortal being, right? Like all of this stuff is like so much cosplay for him, right? Where he's like,
Right.
I should have been Klingon. My Klingon brother, would you speak up? And he just
Yes.
decides, like, I'm
And then
I've decided I'm Klingon now.
yeah. And then when he's not able to charm Worf, he hurls the Romulan, using Romulan as a slur. Not that it is, but that's how Q is using it towards Worf. And then just deciding like, yes, Romulan, that's the one I should have chosen. Like, he'd be miserable as any of them, but
Yes, I
he'll
think
keep
that's
bouncing around. Yeah,
the thing that he realizes
yeah.
by the
At the
end.
end, for sure. Yeah. I also like in this episode we get. I think it's happened before, but we get. I mean, we see Picard have to kind of deliver to put it in, to make it gruff and succinct. It's essentially, it's my duty as a Starfleet officer to advise you that you're fucked. Sort of thing to the poor people on this. Well, I mean, poor. They end up being saved, but they have a puckering, terrible ride on the way to
Yes.
finding out they're fine. Um, but that's interesting to me, and the fact that they jumping to the end a bit, the fact that they wind up actually needing Q to solve the problem, because he does end up getting his powers back, which I honestly, I think this episode hit me hard because I don't know how many episodes Q is in. Like, this very well could have, this very well could have been the last episode of, and it still might be, even though he got his powers back. I doubt it, but so I had that going on too, which is one of the nice things about making sure that I know as little as possible as we continue moving forward. Yeah, it's not all just to bring you guys joy. It also makes it more fun for me to have no idea, or very, very little idea what's coming. Obviously, I know Picard isn't gonna, get killed and wind up not being on the show anymore, but I know there's a whole business with him in the Borg, which may or may not be why I've until they actually happened. Every episode is like, could it be the Borg? Could this be it?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, maybe they did something to the moon. Maybe that's why
It's
it was crashing.
very possible. Yeah. Um, I did when Q is talking about he's in the cell. I think he's talking to Data. Or it might be. It's anyway. He's talking to somebody, and he's talking about the moons he's seen, and he's like big ones and small ones, and there's little paws, and I was just waiting for some as large as your head to come out of his mouth, and it didn't, and I was a little sad. But it would have been weird for him to say that. Let me see. Yeah, I love how Q allows Dr. Crusher to be a little snarky. So this is after he's attacked. The first time he's attacked by the alien race he angered that has found he's human.
Is the yeah? Is that before or after they go to 10 forward?
What the deuce is 10 forward?
10 forward. It's the the recreation.
Oh, the bar. Yeah,
the bar.
That's I think it's right before on their way to the bar. Because then I comment on the Q and Data pairing because that's after he's let out of the cell, and Picard tells Data that he's in charge, like Q's babysitter essentially until he's off the ship. And then they go to the 10 forward. Is that what it is? I think I know what it's. Anyway, and Guinan like circling Q a little, like doesn't like circle him, but she's moving a little bit like a shark. Like Whoopi Goldberg's a fantastic actress, and she shows it off in every episode that she's here. But she's got this really menacing like little pace that she does to like kind of take in the human Q, and just totally reads as like a predator to me in that moment, and it's fantastic. Because we've seen,
I don't know that we ever find out exactly what
the tension between them is. Yeah, that would be nice. It would be nice to know, but I'm also kind of okay with it being this sort of just nebulous hatred of them. But it would be very interesting. I also think, I mean, obviously he ends up getting his powers back at the end, but I think it could be really, if he would have stayed not having the powers and not sacrificed himself at the end, it would have been really interesting to see like a My Name is Earl, where Q is the Earl, and he had to go around the different galaxies apologizing to all the people.
What's that line he says to Picard where he's like, "You merely dislike me. There are beings out there that truly despise me."
Yes. Like that could be so interesting.
I also like in this 10 forward scene Data's analysis of human eating habits.
Yes.
Was fun, and again seeing that apparently Troy is the Kathy of the Enterprise.
Yes, she is. I do like that they called back her in that episode I hated about how she just really wanted some real chocolate, and I do like that it was a callback. I like it when
it comes up again.
Called back and there's 3 threads. Yeah, I mean it's a little like basic bitch, like At and Kathy. They're like, why do prods always lead? But I do like that it's a.
I've never seen anyone eat 10 chocolate sundaes before.
I wanted him to eat them, and then like
I really did too.
Sick and
I thought
stuff.
He did.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. I misremembered the episode, and I thought he did eat them, and then got really sick. But I was wrong.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed when he didn't.
They went the other way.
Mm-hmm. Or like to get like an ice cream headache, or like feeling sick or something, but no. We're robbed of all of this.
That was my favorite moment with Crusher, when Crusher's like, "You're hungry."
Yes. Oh God, the sass she displays, and very much warranted, which is why it's fun to see from her. Yes, for sure. And as bad as we want to talk about Q, he is he's incredibly self-absorbed, and like I wouldn't want to encounter him at all. But at least he's self-aware.
It is, yeah. Or he
Amongst
has
all of
the
it,
he has the
ability,
potential for
yeah,
self-awareness.
yes, which is more than you can say for a lot of self-absorbed people. At least
Yeah.
displaying it publicly and stuff.
I mean, I think that's the fun thing about Q, and the thing that I don't, not to give too much away, and but is, I think, well done, is that he's kind of this, chaotic neutral, especially in D&D terms, and maybe starts off as kind of chaotic evil impish character, but like has at least to some degree a growth arc over the
Yeah,
course of the Star Trek, the TNG series, which is um, something that I'm kind of a sucker for.
but yeah,
At least.
me too. Yeah, and totally like you can definitely tell that this Q, and even I don't like super remember the last like appearance or two of his, like directly what they were, but you do get the sense that his interactions with Picard in particular are having some influence on him, which is impressive given he's ostensibly been around for millennia and
I
omnipotent
mean,
powers.
it's why I'm a sucker for all of those, paranormal romances where the old paranormal creature falls in love with a mortal and
Yeah,
learns all kinds of lessons.
lessons indubitably. I have been rewatching Psych because it's a good comfort show to me,
Yeah,
and I
it's
promise
one of.
I'm gonna tie this back in because
This is
Corbin
now the
Burnson. This is
Psych
not the
cast.
yeah. So you thought this was Star Trek? Psych! It's the Psych podcast. But Corbin Burnson, who plays the lead character, one of the two lead characters, dads in Psych, is Corbin Burnson, and I know other people. I know he has more famous roles than his in Psych, but I was too young to really be into. Well, not too young because I think 2002. Anyway, wasn't into the other shows that he got really big in. And I really like. I mean, there's issues with this character in Psych because he's a retired cop, but I like that sort of role he plays in that, and he's. I would argue it's very. I mean, he's not. Q2 isn't Q's dad or anything necessarily, but he's got that same like swagger about him, and I just think Corbin Burnson is very good at having that like sort of asshole macho swagger, but you can with a good you can tell he has a good heart and he like actually cares if that's making problematic as
Yeah,
some
I had forgotten all about
yeah
this other, yeah, the other Q comes to check on him. I'll be
yeah.
honest. But yeah, I liked him more as a character, and I don't know if we ever see him again. I don't
I don't
remember,
think we
honestly.
do. I because
Uh,
I remember I was like that's Corbin Burnson, right? Because I'm used to like I guess it's like 20 years later Corbin Burnson um, from this. And I suppose if I was more familiar with his God, I forget what it was. Was it Law and Order or I don't know, some like court show. I'm sure there's people. Anyway, because he's got, I think the hair he has is kind of iconic for him in this. Anyway, I don't know why I'm digressing so much on that, other than the fact that I'm me. So I do like so Q meets Q2 not meets but interacts with Q2 Corbin Burnson because he's doing a selfless act and then gets his power back and is Q again, which I I I mean the character arc, if it would have happened of that character turning human and then realizing he'd be miserable as a human and sort of paying amends to the TNG crew via sacrificing himself so that they don't have to worry about the aliens would have been sort of a beautiful little arc. But I'm also happy that Q's out there in the universe able to be a foil again in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's,
Yeah.
he is that kind of character that is a fun character to,
You love hating him.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but going back just real quick, I still really want to know what the Calamarain were trying to say in that scrambly
Oh, yes.
robot message that they
That
that
would
they
be,
sent.
yeah, that'd be interesting. I imagine, I mean, this is obviously just a guess on my part, but I would imagine it's probably like, um, surrender the being named Q and we don't have any quarrel with you sort of thing. But that would have been nice, especially because they just sort of, um, I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows if he, because he had them in the palm of his hand on the shuttle, and then Q2 popped back in, was like, don't make me regret giving you your powers back, bro. And so he uh, um, blows into his hand like sort of like you would do with like a dandelion to make the stuff like the seeds go flying and stuff, and
Balls.
the alien energy matter thing like disappears, and like I suspect that he just like put them back in their home or wherever they belong since Q2 was there, but maybe he just genocide. I don't know if it's genocide
I,
because if it's not the whole, it might have
yeah,
just been
I
like
mean, I
an
think the
advanced scouts
implication
party.
is that he put them back
Put
where
them
they were
back, yeah.
supposed to be. I mean, and that's
That
why he needs
I
to.
would think that's what it is because Q2 was right there and he has the just checking to see if you were still there. But you know,
Um,
uh,
yeah, and I mean, it's always a fine line, but I feel like that's one of the reasons why Q sort of works as a recurring character is because he's a I feel like yeah in D&D terms I feel like he's chaotic neutral, like he's a
hmm.
dick but he's not like, and like they hint at evil things that he's done but like he doesn't seem to be quite evil on the right scale to be a
I
true like
yeah,
villain, I feel like,
I think you
or
could
at least
make
the
it.
way he's written in the thing, like
I think there's an argument to be made that he's lawful neutral,
maybe.
and he has his own because like I'm basing this largely off of the first time or two that we see him, where he literally puts humanity on trial,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Um, but yeah, you know, I don't. I also don't think you're wrong. I'm just saying, like,
I
just
think there's something else
discussion's
I was
sake.
going to say. Oh, getting back to your other point, just because I want before I forget. But yeah, I also like I do like that his motivations for what he does are a little layered, which I think makes it a lot more believable
Yes, and a lot more fun.
and a lot more fun.
Yeah,
Where it is both sort of selfless, but also kind of selfish, depending on on which way you
for
look
sure.
at what he's
Yeah,
doing and why he's doing it.
you could say perhaps that it's a matter of perspective.
Oh Lord. On
I
that
don't
note,
know.
I will
I
also
don't know
tell
why
you
you hang
you
out
were
with me.
very close. It was L.A. Law was
LA Law. There we go. Yeah.
so very close. The other big law named show
Yes.
from the early
It was
90s.
bothering you, and you had to look it up, didn't you?
Well, I just wanted to be able to
Oh, fair
parcel
enough.
out
To
that
tell the
information
people. Yeah.
like your own Q, who is
Yes. Terrified. Um, I like the interaction with Data at the end of this episode. Uh, their little moment where Data seems genuinely worried that Q is going to turn him into a human,
mm,
which is it makes sense, but it's also interesting, and I'll just leave it. It's also interesting because I mean that would be a big. Yes, he always wants to be a human, but that's a fundamental change to who he is, and it's nice to see, especially after earlier when he delivers that heartbreaking line, that there is a part of him that's accepting that he isn't human, even though he really wants to be, which is nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that another part of it could also be that I think partly for Data and partly for the show. Like I feel like in general, right, that one of the themes is that humanity, whether we think this is true or not, is a debatable point. But um, um, like a fundamental aspect of humanity is like learning and struggling towards new things. And I think for Data, like I think there's part of him which almost feels like by just being turned human, it would almost be like he hadn't really become human in a human way.
Yeah,
Almost.
no, I think you're spot on that.
Where I think part of it for Data is that questing after what it is to be human and how to become more human is part of what makes him feel more human.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that curiosity is like that's the part of humanity that he has, and I think
he doesn't
so.
want
Like,
to lose that. Yeah, even if he
yeah,
could. And I'll put the word gain in quotes, even though he could gain
yeah,
more from it. I do like that the gift Q decides to leave him with is a little bit of laughter, like a good genuine laugh, even though he doesn't know why he's laughing. Because that's a callback to, I think it was early in the second season,
oh yeah,
maybe. Maybe
the
not a
stand up when he's
callback,
doing
but
the
like
stand
the
up.
stand up, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot all
And
about that.
trying to understand laughter. I don't think Q knew about that, but to because here I'm going to wax philosophical for a second, but laughter is one of the most pure of emotional reactions when it's a true laugh, because it's not. And a lot of times comedy needs to surprise you, so it's like it's as honest as a like a scream of terror, but it's the happy side of that, I
I
guess, if
mean,
that
I
makes sense.
will let you on a little secret. My mom and actually I do this too, but we tend to laugh on roller coasters as opposed to scream.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. I guess that makes sense too, though. Like, Ralph Wiggum on the bus chuckling, "I'm in danger." uh, Makes some sense. I love. There's this just last part of this episode, and then we'll move on. If you, with a button from you, if you want to say anything, but just the most sourpuss look on Picard's face as he
I mean,
considers that Q might actually not be an asshole anymore, and then suddenly the cigar appears in his hand, and there's a puff of smoke with a tiny Q in it, and he says, "Don't bet on it."
yeah,
Hey.
I mean, I feel like the end of this episode. I, I don't know. Like, there is something about the flair of Q, which is like, like I'm happy that Q can sort of cause this kind of like flamboyant chaos on the bridge. Just like it is
Yes,
kind of nice to see Q be able to like
it's
do that
holodeck.
again.
Yeah, it's holodeck zaniness, but not in a holodeck.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is nice.
Which, speaking of which, the next episode has reality realness in
Yeah,
a place that is supposed to be zany.
which I think is a super bad idea for trials.
Oh
But
god, it is such a bad idea.
we're talking about moving on to talking about season 3, episode 14, A Matter of Perspective, which is the correct title for this episode, but it is poorly titled.
It is poorly titled, and the only I will just say, for me, the only good thing about this episode is the this cold open part where Data is describing Picard's
Oh my
style,
god!
which
Reads the painting
worth
to
watching.
filth. Reads the painting to filth. Yeah, the cold open is definitely worth watching because, oh lord, Like, for once, there's an interaction with Data where I want to hug the other person. I shouldn't say
Yeah, exactly.
for once, because Data's bluntness leads to that a couple times.
A
But
real, I don't know, to bring it back to a campaign that we're both in, I feel like a real Ghani interacting with somebody moment.
For
I think
sure.
I'm being helpful, but I'm
Yes.
actually being really rude.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, and just Picard being more and more like, oh.
Yes. So, moving on from that, we get a major character in danger where I'm not worried because it's Riker. And I know Riker is in every episode. Well, maybe not every episode, but is in every season through the end. So, not worried about his safety, but he does get back on board as a space station explodes. A giant space station by the scale it appears they're trying to show, with only one friggin' person on it, apparently. And we only ever see, we know of
three. Yeah, I was gonna say three people seem to be on it normally.
Yes,
maybe
it seems to have a normal complement of 3, and has had upwards of 5 people on it when it was Riker and Geordi on there too. Which, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a science help. Whatever. It just seems. It seems like they wanted to have the big major disaster, but they didn't also want to have a big body count, which I understand.
Yeah, I mean,
but at the same way, you could have just made the freaking lab explode, and not the whole space station. Whatever.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff about like I don't know if you want to give a warning about this episode or not. I know you did in the tweet thread.
I did in the tweet thread, but there's depictions of sexual assault and also domestic violence, and they never. I mean, obviously, it was broadcast television, so they never. They show sexual assault, and I'm not. Anyway, I'll just say it. There's the Riker is defending himself against rape allegations, or the implication of. Anyway, so there is that going on, and it's. I'm just gonna get this out too. We see. We're later in the episode, toward the end of the episode. We're in the trial, in the holodeck, and why I don't think holodecks are a good idea for a trial. At least if you're seeing people, maybe if you're recreating a space, whatever. But like seeing the people recreated in the holodeck is just a bad idea for trials, because you are seeing, viscerally, it is Riker. It's his form. It's a perfect, in the universe, it's a perfect recreation of him. And as the defendant, the prosecution has a witness that shows her point of view, and her point of view is that she is sexually assaulted, grabbed, and made clear that that Riker's intent in grabbing her is to force intimacy upon her. And it's something I'm having a real hard time with too, is talking about this, and the very real and thing I agree with, where we should always believe victims. And a big part of my issue with this episode is that it's, well, first of all, it's not even. Okay, so we see the scene between a replay of her version of events, where Riker grabs her and is sexually assaulting her, and they stop the holodeck playback thing, and Riker is defending himself and saying that's not how it happened. I didn't do that, and a really chilling interaction with Troy where she says that she didn't detect any deceit in the woman, and that's the last we hear of this little interaction. Like they go and
Yeah,
they yeah, and
it's very weird. I don't
it's
it, like if they even I don't know like and I feel the weird thing is I feel for the time they the writers may have felt that they were trying to be like weirdly progressive
mm-hmm,
in a weird sort of way, like like she's not lying, like she's not like somebody who's just out to get you or something like that,
right,
right? Like but but I think just because of time that has passed and and at least some of us becoming more aware of things, like the fact that they just put it out there but then like do nothing with it just
right.
makes it
We don't
seem so much worse.
yeah, we don't find out, that like, man. And see, I'm still struggling because I we've seen 3.5, we're on 2.5 seasons of episodes where we can point to at least one, probably more, things where Riker vehemently publicly takes a stand against or has the opportunity to cause harm in this or like a very similar sort of manner, and he very clearly communicates through actions and words that it's not anything he's interested. Like the end of last episode, he says that, like, I don't need your fantasy women or anything like that, which I guess could actually tie in either direction in this case. But um, yeah, they just, if this woman isn't lying and that's how she saw her account, yay, Riker didn't murder her husband, but like, can we maybe?
It's so unresolved, and I think there's
Yeah,
also something very weird about, not I don't know, maybe not very weird, but like it's weird that Troy kind of makes this statement about her but then like doesn't really make a similar blank statement about him. Like it's like, why is she not being deposed? Like why is
yeah,
she not part of also, I mean, as someone who can read people's emotions, like it just, I don't know, it just seems it's such a throwaway line on such a non-throwaway issue. Like
yes,
I think that it somehow makes everything even worse than the episode I think would have been
right.
anyway.
Because if
I
she,
guess I don't know how else to put it.
yeah, if she
Uh,
if she was lying, there was no need to have that scene in there. And if she wasn't lying, then why the fuck are we letting it go? It doesn't.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's. I mean, and so I yeah I don't. It's
yeah,
I don't like, and I guess one of the things I was going to say before we really got into this before, was just that like there's a lot about this episode that is like even beyond the very poor handling of the sexual assault allegations. Like I don't know, I find this episode to be kind of a crappy episode in general. Like there's just so
yeah.
much about it that is just put together poorly, in my opinion.
I agree.
Like um I think one of the things that was making me think about that was your comments about the space station, where it's it just seems like there were so many things that just seem, I don't know, it's a bad episode all
Yeah,
around, I feel like, except for the
just
cold open.
except for the cold open. Yeah, there's like the like, why is it a giant space station that has to blow up that only 3 people live on and only one person was on? I don't
And
want a space station full of people to have died, but why isn't it just a space station full of people
and
where the lab exploded and killed the guy? Like,
and like why, I don't know, and like there's like his assistant who like doesn't seem to know anything like
yeah,
about
she
about
just
like the research
she just
that's
delivers the
happening.
yeah, she seems to just be there to deliver the line in the trial about how the doctor was sitting down to activate the device.
Yeah.
Seems to be the only reason that she was involved in the episode at all.
And there's also something very, and I don't know how to put this, like kind of in both Riker and Manua, is that her name?
I can't
The
remember.
wife, I think. Like their recreations, there's something so overpoweringly cis heteronormative about the interactions between
Yeah.
these three people. I mean, these three people when they're like having the drinks, and I don't know, it's like the bored wife and the like male doctor who or professor who can't be bothered to pay attention
Yeah.
to anything. I don't know. There's just something so like just everything about this episode. I'm like, ugh.
For sure. It yeah.
Sorry to be so hard on.
No.
Just,
I'm not a fan of this episode, and even
uh,
if I was, your views would still be valid and worth talking about.
but yeah, like I don't know, just
Yeah.
to give credit to, because I Hope had sent out a thing about this episode in
Mm-hmm.
particular, just in our little Twitter thread, and I had I looked at it and after he mentioned it, I was like, oh, I kind of remember this episode, and I remember not liking it. I watched it and I was like, oh, I forgot how much I hate this
Yeah.
episode.
It's just not good. It's just not good.
um, but another thing, getting back to the holodeck thing, because I think this is another thing that I think is interesting that doesn't like again I feel like doesn't really get explored very well, and it is that like like this I feel like this episode also has a very early 90s late 80s, well, and for some people continuing on, um, belief that technology inherently can solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I feel like this is such a good episode for potentially, and I feel like in 2022, did I get the year right? It's 2022, right?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware.
I think a lot of us are a lot more ambivalent about technology and how technology, especially like this, where you're using it to recreate things, really depends on the people who both a make the programming, but
Mm-hmm.
b also the people that they are whose experiences they're drawing on, and so like I feel like we've become a lot more ambivalent about the use of this sort of thing, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like this episode had the potential to really examine that, but
Yeah.
really doesn't, like because it does like show these conflicting viewpoints, and it seems like a way to talk about like, oh, like I guess the holodeck didn't really help that much because it didn't really like give us any insight into anything,
Yeah.
like,
Well, yeah.
but they don't really do that. Like it doesn't seem like it just seems to be like, let's make a holodeck episode, but let's make it depressing and not a fun holodeck episode.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with these holodeck episodes, but how could we make one miserable? Like
Yeah,
that
kind
was
of, and really
the pitch.
really awkward and really
Yeah.
uncomfortable and really make people feel kind of gross.
Yeah. Like
um,
I think a holodeck in a trial could be great for recreating a crime, like something like physical, like they have the orthographic images of the space station and the plans and stuff like that, so they get I trust the recreation of the lab, the physical placement of things, how big things are, where they are. I trust all that. But the holodeck, if you're going off of depositions from people and their own personal logs and diaries, there's no point in putting it in the holodeck, because it's just going to be them either telling you the truth or them lying to you through the holodeck. Like
yeah, well, and
why
then
make
Data
Data
has this.
program it for 18 hours?
Well, and he has that weird comment that there's like an 8% margin of error, which
Yeah. Which how they've
like,
done that, they've pulled that shit before, and like how do you
yeah, and
know?
I'm like, I don't quite know what that means in this
Mm-hmm.
like context. It seems like a very broad thing to have 1% error, like one
Yeah.
number for. It seems like there should be several percentages of error
Yes.
that we have, but also like 8% seems like a lot.
For
Like,
for a trial of this scope, absolutely.
uh, so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't. Oh, the other thing I wanted to call attention to, just because it was in the thread and it was the only other like kind of delight I got out of this episode, was Space Detectives Pompadour.
Yes, Space Detectives Pompadour was fantastic.
Is I feel like the only other
Yeah.
redeeming aspect of this.
I do also want to point out another protocol problem I have. The fantastically pompadoured space detective arrives, accuses Riker of murder, and then Picard's like, "Space detective dude, you and I are gonna go talk in here. Guy that was just accused of murder, you're in charge of the bridge."
I mean, and
It's
I
like,
think it's supposed to read as like Picard giving Riker a vote of confidence, I think,
right, but
but
it's still
still, yeah. Well,
bad. Like, you can be confident in him, but and like even like the people, like everybody on the bridge, like turns and like looks at Riker, like not like, oh dear God, is he gonna murder us? But like, the fuck is, like, which they're, what the fuck is probably intended to read as, how are they accusing you of murder? You're Riker. When I think a more obvious reading of it is like, why the
why the
fuck
fuck?
is the innocent until proven guilty, but maybe don't let the
Yeah,
dingo be in charge of the nursery
yeah.
just in case.
Well,
Uh,
and speaking of procedure errors, like another thing that really drove me, just really bugged me, is Riker has this extremely tense
right? His
uh,
like he,
thing. Whatever happened, there was this extremely tense interaction with, uh, you know, the the wife and whatever, the doctor
mm-hmm.
guy, the professor guy, and like why they don't, he like doesn't insist that he and LaForge immediately beam down to whatever accommodations they had made on the planet
Right.
is boggles my mind. But B, that he sends LaForge back and
Mm-hmm.
stays there on his own also just seems like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah, you're correct. I guess I was kind of like, because it's a well, I mean, yes, you know what? I withdraw
it just,
my devil's advocate, like this, to further expound upon that by saying like, why is this doctor guy just like so sure that um I obviously we know he was like up to shenanigans and stuff and being defensive for that, but the things he's bringing up is like, oh, you're going to be mad that I'm requisitioning all this extra stuff. I can like, he's defensive when I don't feel like, and obviously whatever we've seen is whatever we've seen of their interaction is biased
all,
by
yeah, all but filtered.
somebody's point of view, because we're only seeing it in the holodeck for their interactions. Nothing we um so that's also weird. And then also Riker's mood when he comes back, like, especially having seen the whole episode now, Riker's mood when he comes back reads as guilty of something, or because he's tight jawed, he's not cracking jokes, he's essentially not being Riker.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, even when he's upset or contemplative about things, he's then passionate and animated about them. And in here, he's steely, closed in. It's very much seems very out of character for Riker, even if he is not in a good mood, and just reads as like, I done fucked up something, and yeah, I don't know. Like the tension between Riker and Picard in the just before the space detective man shows up, Space Interpol. Uh, it's like it's such a weird tone for the rest of the episode after that, regardless of the other things that
Yeah.
are bad and wrong. Like, even if everything would have been perfect after that, um, there's still that weird tone of like he's like, because as far as in every recreation, I think we saw the exchange was, well, I guess he didn't. The exchange wasn't the same as that. He didn't turn and shoot like the other. But there's the whole like, there's the exchange where it's, I'll be sure to relay this to my captain about it, and then he comes back and doesn't do that. I mean, granted, he did find out that the space station exploded, so he's processing that. But you'd think that would just make him even more motivated to relay that exchange to Picard. So
yeah, no, it's, I mean, and I don't know, like it's, I mean, and another thing that is, I mean, of course, like irritated, like not irritated, but it's like what, like one of the things that makes this episode so terrible, right, um is that this episode, I feel like it could be if I were teaching a class on tropes and using like sexual assault as a plot device, like this episode could really be a manual for it almost, because like the only reason it's there is to give some potential motivation for why Riker might have killed or exploded the space station, right? Like it's the only reason it's there. It's like, why couldn't you guys have come up with literally any other reason? You know, like, and then of course, like as soon as it's no longer needed, like it just gets dropped at the end.
Just off the top of my head, off the top of my head, could have been bribery. They could have been accusing him of bribery or something.
Yeah.
Something where it'd still be weird, but I'd be willing to let it go and hand wave it off if they didn't address the fact that the wife wasn't lying, or finding out something about how this, they're able to fool empaths or something,
or
something.
Yeah, or I don't know.
I mean, best
like,
would be to not even have it.
Yeah,
in the
best
episode.
would be to not even have it. And I'll be honest, when I was watching it, I was like, I couldn't remember the whole episode, and I was like, is there going to be something about the Krieger waves and how it disrupts your memory or something like that? I was like, I thought maybe that was a direction they were going to head in or something, like that it,
there's so many things that they could have done.
Yeah, they could have. I don't know, but like as I said, like, and then the thing, of course, that you mentioned at the end, like in your thread, like then as soon as this plot device isn't needed anymore, they just drop it. Space Constable is just like, well, you didn't commit murder, and I guess there's no other crimes that we should be investigating here. So bye. Just like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
I mean, I get what's happening, and that like
I get what's happening, but what is happening?
But what is happening here?
Oh goodness. Well, we are at we're at an hour and 62 minutes. But if I think this is a good point to wrap up. But if you do have other things,
I was just gonna button up and say 313, watch it. 314, watch the cold open. Skip the rest of the episode. I honestly think it might be my least favorite episode of the episodes that we have watched.
Possibly, potentially,
and watched and discussed, I should say, because there are a couple that we didn't really discuss in season 1 that I think would be in the running.
The first like 7 or whatever.
But that's all. That's all I want to say.
I will say this episode has 2 things going for it: the cold open and Troy's wearing the teal dress.
Oh, well, yes.
But that's less of a big deal for you and other people that have seen more of the show, because apparently it's a regular thing. But anyway, so yeah, that will do it for us this week. Hope you join us next week when we discuss episodes 15 and 16. I don't know what the titles of those are. I'll find out a week from today. And you can see both of us, Robin and I. You should be able to see both of us tomorrow on the season premiere of Once Upon a Leap.
Yep.
But we'll see you then. or next week. Until then, okay, bye bye.